Lesson number 5, Monday, October 24th. 2 Old Testament cases. The first one is found in First Book of Kings, chapter 17, 8-24, dealing with Elijah and the dead child. The second one is found in Second Book of Kings, chapter 4, 18-37, dealing with Elisha and the dead child. What similarities and differences do you see in these two resurrections? In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 35, we read that by faith, women received back their death by resurrection. This was the case in the two resurrections depicted in the texts for today. The first one, in First Book of Kings 17:8-24, occurred during the great apostasy in Israel, which happened under the influence of King Ahab and his pagan wife Jezebel. As a severe drought was ravaging the land, God commanded Elijah to go to Zarephath, a town outside of Israel. There he met a poor Phoenician widow who was about to cook a paltry last meal for herself and her son, and then die. But their lives were spared through the miracle of the flour and the oil, which didn't run out until the drought was over. Some time later, her son became sick and died. In despair, the mother pled with Elijah, who cried out to the Lord. The Lord listened to the voice of Elijah, and the life of the boy returned to him, and he revived. The second resurrection story is found in Second Book of Kings 4:18-37. It took place in Shunem, a small village south of Mount Gilboa. Elisha had helped a poor widow to pay her debts through the miracle of filling many vessels with oil. Later, in Shunem, he met a prominent married woman who had no children. The prophet told her that she would have a son, and it happened as predicted. The child grew and was healthy, but one day got sick and died. The Shunammite woman went to Mount Carmel and asked Elisha to come with her to see her son. Elisha prayed persistently to the Lord, and finally, the child was alive again. These women had different backgrounds but the same saving faith. The Phoenician widow hosted the prophet Elijah in an extremely difficult time when there was no safe place for him in Israel. The Shunammite woman and her husband built a special room where the prophet Elisha could stay while passing through their region. When the two children died, their faithful mothers appealed to those prophets of God and had the joy of seeing their children come to life again. These are great stories, but for each of these two accounts, how many untold others didn't end with something so miraculous? What should this sad fact teach us about just how central to our faith is the promised resurrection at the end of time? On the first story of Elijah, the book Conflict and Courage, page 206, says, "In this poverty-stricken home, the famine pressed sore, and the pitifully meager fare seemed about to fail. The coming of Elijah, on the very day when the widow feared that she must give up the struggle to sustain life, tested to the utmost her faith in the power of the living God to provide for her necessities. But even in her dire extremity, she bore witness to her faith by a compliance with the request of the stranger who was asking her to share her last morsel with him. The widow of Zarephath shared her morsel with Elijah. In return, her life and that of her son were preserved. And to all who, in time of trial and want, give sympathy and assistance to others more needy, God has promised great blessing." The second story related to Elisha from the book Prophets and Kings, page 238 and 239, it says, The mother would not be satisfied till Elisha himself came with her. "As the Lord liveth, as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee," she declared, and he arose and followed her. When they reached the house, Elisha went into the room where the dead child lay, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord for the dead child. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands. And he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. So was the faith of this woman rewarded. Christ himself, the great life-giver, restored her son to her. In like manner will his faithful ones be rewarded when, at his coming, death loses its sting, and the grave is robbed of the victory it has claimed. Then will he restore to his servants the children that have been taken from them by death. Have a blessed day.